Shit, look at this shit. They're doing it right there. This is the spot to do everything.
Infections from intravenous drug use. What is intravenous drug use? Intravenous injections rapidly admit drugs into the body by way of inserting a needle into a peripheral vein in the arm or leg. Otherwise known as shooting, slamming, banging, blasting, or mainlining. Intravenous injections usually result in a much more rapid availability of the drug into the system. Intravenous injection also leads to a greater risk of dependency and infection from dirty needles or usage of toxic drugs. Why does for drug use produce infection? When it comes to for drug use and infection, there are many factors to consider. Bacterial infections are caused when germs on the skin, or within a contaminated needle, are pushed through the skin and deep into the body. Injecting a substance into the skin bypasses the usual barriers of entry that our body uses to protect us. If infection-causing bacteria reach blood vessels, it can result in infection of the widespread deep tissue, veins, or vascular tissue. Those who inject subcutaneously or engage in skin popping are at higher risk of developing infected blisters, subcutaneous abscesses, or pustules when users share needles or other injecting paraphernalia. Blood-borne infections like HIV and hepatitis C are common. Those who live in poor conditions and engage in intravenous drug use usually have a lack of hygiene and poor nutritional habits that contribute to the risk of getting other infections from shooting up, such as staph is the deadliest skin infection. With over 30 varieties, staph infection symptoms can range from mild to life-endangering. Commonly injected drugs. The most commonly injected drugs are heroin, amphetamines, barbiturates, buprenorphine, benzodiazepine, cocaine, and methamphetamine. Cause of bacterial infections, skin and soft tissue infections. Bacterial infections often arise from injecting a needle into fatty tissue beneath the surface layer of skin. Veins that leak during injection along with toxic drug usage can cause infection as well as tissue morbidity. The presence of bacteria on the skin surface while injecting can also result in bacterial infection. Types of bacterial infections: abscess, botulism, cellulitis, heart valve infection, HIV infection, AIDS, liver disease, tetanus. The spread of the HIV virus across China, Central Asia, and Eastern Europe closely corresponds with the rapid rise in intravenous or for drug use. Signs of infection. If an infection is present in bodily areas that are frequently injected, the injection site will become tender, warm to the touch, and red. A frequent pattern of injection causes infections that lead to discoloration, scarring. A person with swollen lymph glands that has a high fever and heavy sweats may need immediate medical attention. These needle infection symptoms are signs of an overdose or a toxic reaction to a substance. For example, black tar heroin is named after its tar-like consistency. It contains many additives and contaminants that can cause local infection, blood clots, and damage to the following organs: lungs, kidneys, brain, liver.
Next row. Look this. I have to get my gloves. Let me get my gloves. All right, look, I'm gonna take a dump, and they're coming up with blood. Next row. Look at this. I have to get my gloves. Let me get my gloves. Look. Look, another one here. In the playground. Now, see? Let me take it out. I'm kicking it. Yeah. I'm gonna come and get it with the gloves. And this is with blood, look. See, there's a few needles there. There's a few needles. With blood and everything. That's why we have to be careful. You have to be careful. Ball connection is there. Ball of connection. You see how the park is coming little by little, people. People are helping us. Little by little. Look. Every day we keep cleaning. And we're gonna maintain clean at least a little bit. You see the cops. So it's a good thing. Thank you, man. Oh, get a wreck. Despacito está. A ver. Yeah. Yeah. Trabajando, así estoy. Estoy trabajando. Haciendo que algo. En el parque estoy. Está bien, me avisa, yo estoy aquí. Por ahí está la policía y todo, bien cabrón. I gave everything to Terry. All right. ¿Está bien? All right. Así está el parque. Like this is the park. Yeah. All right. Me llama cualquier cosa. All right. Another shootout. Yo, I'm helping Clap. They got a program. Yeah, they got a program. Look, we're giving jobs to the homeless. Look, I helped these two guys. I told them be here in the park early so they can get a job, and that's what we're doing. We come to the park, and you can see they're all cleaning. Look, they're all cleaning. They're all cleaning. So at the end of the day, they give you $50 for the homeless, and you know they get $50 for working, and we try to help them, and like that they come. They're motivated. They come every 3 days. They get the job here, and we give them the job, and they help us to clean the park. So if they're here, they get job. So that's what we do. We help homeless to get job, and like that. Look, this is my two buddies. If they get job, yeah, exactly, and they get work. They work right.
Synthetic opioids, like fentanyl, are fueling the rise in overdose deaths. Over the last several years, deaths by synthetic opioids have been on a sharp incline, while overdose deaths by fentanyl. What drug users and people who work with them in Philadelphia talk about is the smell. The smell of rotting flesh from open infected wounds. Some users say they feel ashamed of the state of their bodies. But more feel a sense of urgency. They need help. The wounds are killing them. It is absolutely horrible. That's the reality, though, said James Sherman, known as Sherm around Philadelphia's Kensington neighborhood, where he once used drugs and where he now tries to help those still on the streets. The need for help has become more urgent over the last 3 years, as the animal tranquilizer xylazine, also called tranq, has become a bigger part of Philly's street fentanyl supply. Xylazine can cause large wounds that won't heal, no matter where you inject it, and they can appear even if you snort it or smoke it. Infections are common and can even lead to amputations. Some people aren't ready to see that yet, Sherman said. It's literally people's flesh rotting, and you can smell it. Kensington has seen the changing nature of America's addiction crisis. It has been well known as a place to buy heroin under the elevated rail line, a short distance, but a world away from the business and tourist centers of downtown. Heroin was edged out by the more powerful synthetic opioid fentanyl. But fentanyl's effects don't last as long as heroin, and so xylazine was added to street fentanyl to give it legs, according to Sarah Laurel, who founded Savage Sisters, the harm reduction group that employs Sherman. Xylazine is not approved for humans, but it's widely available for veterinarians to sedate large animals like horses. Like an opioid, it can kill pain, but it cannot be reversed with Narcan, also known as naloxone, which is used to treat opioid overdoses, according to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency. As xylazine is usually mixed in with fentanyl, naloxone can help an overdosed person by counteracting the opioid, though other measures may be needed. Workers at Savage Sisters now carry oxygen tanks with them. The drug has side effects like tranq walk, where people seem unaware of their surroundings, along with sores and wounds. Tranq made its mark on Philadelphia's street drugs about 3 years ago. That's when doctors, users and those who try to help them saw a difference. Synthetic opioids, like fentanyl, are fueling the rise in overdose deaths. Over the last several years, deaths by synthetic opioids have been on a sharp incline, while overdose deaths by heroin have dropped off. Drug overdose deaths per 100,000 U.S. residents, 2001 to 2021. Nobody was coming to Kensington to buy tranq, they were coming to get heroin, said Laurel of the Savage Sisters group. You don't go to your drug dealer and say, "Do you have a nutrition label with this?" You get what you get and you don't get upset. And whatever you get you eventually feel a physical compulsion to do, she said. Kensington now the fentanyl supply has adulterants to xylazine, is in 9 out of 10 samples of lab-tested dope in Philadelphia.
Drug overdose deaths remain high. 75% of the nearly 92,000 drug overdose deaths in 2020 involved an opioid. More than 932,000 people have died since 1999 from a drug overdose. 1 in 2020, 91,799 drug overdose deaths occurred in the United States. The age-adjusted rate of overdose deaths increased by 31% from 2019, 21.6 per 100,000, to 2020, 28.3 per 100,000. Opioids, mainly synthetic opioids, other than methadone, are currently the main driver of drug overdose deaths. 82.3% of opioid-involved overdose deaths involved synthetic opioids. Opioids were involved in 68,630 overdose deaths in 2020, 74.8% of all drug overdose deaths. Drug overdose deaths involving psychostimulants such as methamphetamine are increasing with and without synthetic opioid involvement. In 2020, more than 56,000 deaths involving synthetic opioids, other than methadone, occurred in the United States, which is more deaths than from any other type of opioid. Synthetic opioid-involved death rates increased by over 56% from 2019 to 2020 and accounted for over 82% of all opioid-involved deaths in 2020. The rate of overdose deaths involving synthetic opioids was more than 18 times higher in 2020 than in 2013. Previous reports have indicated that increases in synthetic opioid-involved deaths have been associated with the number of drug submissions obtained by law enforcement that test positive for fentanyl but not with fentanyl prescribing rates. These reports indicate that increases in synthetic opioid-involved deaths are being driven by increases in fentanyl-involved overdose deaths, and the source of the fentanyl is more likely to be illicitly manufactured than pharmaceutical. There are also fentanyl analogs, such as acylfentanyl, furanylfentanyl, and carfentanil, which are similar in chemical structure to fentanyl but not routinely detected because specialized toxicology testing is required. Recent surveillance has also identified other emerging synthetic opioids, like U47700.5. Estimates of the potency of fentanyl analogs vary from less potent than fentanyl to much more potent than fentanyl.